In 1615, Italian explorer Pietro della Valle discovered a number of mummies that combined traditional Egyptian burial techniques with Roman portraiture paintings. His discoveries were the first of over 1,100 such mummy portraits cataloged to date. Discovered most frequently in the Fayum oasis in Egypt, these artifacts are often referred to as Fayum mummy portraits. Mummy portraiture is a product of the Roman occupation of Egypt, referred to historically as the Coptic period. Following the seizure of power by Roman Emperor Octavian Augustus in 30 BC, Egypt remained a province of Rome until the 5th century AD. It is estimated that by the time of this occupation, 30% of the population of the Fayum oasis was already Hellenized Egyptian, or people of mixed Egyptian-Greek origin. Created from the end of the 1st century BC to the middle of the 3rd century AD, mummy portraits act as a prime example of the cultural merging that had been taking place since the Ptolemaic period. Mummy portraits were a unique addition to traditional Egyptian burial customs. Wooden panels portraits were aligned anatomically with the deceased and attached to a hardened stucco coffin with cloth. This prestigious form of portraiture, referred to as panel painting, was common in ancient Rome and Greece before the adaptation of painting on canvas. Egyptian sarcophagi, which depicted the deceased in an idolized form, Fayum mummy portraits, were naturalistic in style. Incorporating graded flesh tones, they portrayed the subject using highlights and shadows in order to convey a three-dimensional appearance. Depicted in such a realistic form, one can gain a sense of the deceased's appearance, the culture they lived in, and the position they held within it. In order to achieve such an elevated level of detail and realism, mummy portrait artists worked with one or more painting methods. Encaustic painting used pigments mixed with hot wax in order to cover a surface. Due to the fast-drying nature of wax, the applier must be especially skilled. Tempera painting involves mixing pigment with a water-soluble binder. In the case of mummy portraits, egg yolk was used. Another rapidly drying medium, tempera painting requires a great skill that can produce long-lasting work. Tempera was often used to apply gold leaf in order to depict jewelry. The warm, dry conditions in Egypt played an important role in the artifact's excellent level of preservation. The portraits range in detail, realism, and skill level. Their female subjects are adorned by an assortment of hairstyles, jewelry, and clothing. Due to the realistic nature of mummy portraits, it is often accepted that they were painted while the subject was still alive, though evidence proves that this was not always the case. Though they share basic construction elements, the mummy portraits and their accompanying coffins vary stylistically. These differences are reflective of the deceased's financial means and status, as well as changing cultural customs. Coffin decoration range from two-dimensional Egyptian hieroglyphs to three-dimensional geometric patterns. Many, but not all, incorporate the color red. It is believed to both represent life-sustaining blood as well as a means to attract the gods. Extraordinary detail and decorative elements seen in this portrait of a middle-aged Fayum woman suggest that she was wealthy and held a high social status. She is depicted with jewelry made of gold and precious stones and a stylized olive wreath headdress as a clear influence of Greco-Roman culture. This portrait is believed to have been painted between 100 and 110 AD. This portrait, painted nearly 50 years later, portrays a woman of similar age. Contrary to the first woman, she is less realistic, wears only earrings, and is clothed in white, a less prestigious color. The diversity found in mummy portraits offer great insight as to the social hierarchy and cultural trends of the period. Painted around 150 AD, this portrait of a man is an excellent example of the chopped curly hair and beard, popular emulations of Hadrian Caesar that were common in male mummy portraits. It also illustrates the cloak worn by women and men during the period. These cloaks were draped over the shoulder with a dark, decorative line called a clavis, one or both sides. Though these cloaks vary from Roman togas, they were draped similarly. Women often wore pink or red cloaks if they were of higher social status, whereas men exclusively wore white. This portrait of a young man from between 110 and 130 AD possesses many of the same traits. Unlike most male portraits, he wears a wreath on his head, possibly an indication of elevated social status. This portrait's subdued colors and fine gradation of shading are indicative of it having been painted with tempera. Although most Fayum mummy portraits are painted in a style that mimics the portraits of Roman leaders, each has features that make it unique. Due to the realistic manner in which they are painted, each portrait has an expression. The ability to convey their subjects' emotions to viewers today makes mummy portraits truly astonishing ancient treasures. As the largest existing collection of ancient panel painting, Fayum mummy portraits are of great historical importance and thus can be seen in every major museum throughout the world. They act not only as extraordinary works of art, but also offer tremendous insight as to the lives and cultures of a dynamic and diverse people.